everyone, my name is Maya, and in this video I will be talking about books that you can read to educate yourself on Black experiences in America. Disclaimer, I have not read all of the books that are on here. Some of them I read bits and pieces of, but I still actively recommend them because of the messages in them. Right. So obviously I'm Black. I'm also a political science student at Grambling State University. I'm entering my senior year where I hope to then go into a doctoral program for political science. I think that I'm a pretty good person to talk about this with and to offer some resources if you're trying to understand Black experiences in America, especially what's going on with George Floyd. And I think this is really important to talk about. The reality is these issues are not new. They have existed and they've been going on for years. And so it's time that we educate ourselves. So the first book that I recommend is Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. This is a great book to understand the nature of some of HBCUs, which are historically Black colleges and universities. I go to one. And some of the respectability politics deeply enrooted in those institutions. I think it's really important to understand what HBCUs were actually like in the early history, and in that you'll be able to understand how important they were, what that type of environment was like for Black Americans. The second book that I recommend is The Black Revolution on Campus by Martha Biondi. This book analyzes protests for Black Studies departments and a more racially inclusive curriculum. It also highlights the denial of these Black Studies programs at HBCUs. I think that this book is absolutely amazing. I read this book when I was in a Black Studies course at Mesa Community College last semester of high school, and I thought this was amazing. So I think that this is so important because it highlights how much closer the advocacy for representation and higher education has been. It's been a lot closer to us than we thought. A lot of these movements were in the 70s and the 80s, entering the 90s and 2000s, and so it's really important to put into perspective how long ago these movements actually were. I think this is extremely important because this is when we start seeing a progression in higher education and a focus which completely changes a lot of different disciplines. Specifically, Black historians completely change the way that historians study history. All of that could not have been done without these revolutions on campus for that representation in higher education and a curriculum that actually represents the students of all different multi-ethnic groups. And so I think that this is extremely important, especially if you are a college student. Alright, so the third book that I recommend is Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome by Dr. Joy DeGruy. In Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome by Dr. Joy DeGruy, Dr. Joy DeGruy explores the ways in which slavery has impacted the psyche of Black Americans today. So we're talking about how the trauma of slavery without treatment has greatly impacted Black Americans today, and how trauma is inherited and why we can see some of these behaviors that are exhibited in the Black community that may not just be innate to them, but they're rather symptoms of trauma. And so I think this is an awesome book. I think it's really important to look at how slavery impacts Black Americans, especially today. A lot of people like to say, oh, well, you know, slavery was a long time ago, but really looking at it and saying, no, like, not only was it not that long ago, but it's directly impacting us today is extremely important. And I think that it can also be a form of just self-education, but self-care for Black Americans to understand that. And I think that everybody should pick it up. The fourth book that I recommend is Ain't I a Woman by Bell Hooks. I love this book. Ain't I a Woman by Bell Hooks analyzes the experiences of Black women and feminism in America. It specifically talks about how traditional white feminism has actually excluded Black women and what Black feminism actually looks like. I love this book. This book completely changed the way that I viewed Black activism, my role in Black activism, and what my duty was to my community, because it goes more in depth into what is the real experiences of Black women and how has the system failed us in the Black community and outside of the Black community. And those are discussions that we need to have. And so I'm totally a Black feminist and I love this book. If there's nothing else that you pick up on this list, please let it be Ain't I a Woman by Bell Hooks. It's amazing. Love it. Next book, I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of it. It is The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. So, The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander analyzes the relationship between Black Americans and the prison industrial complex. Alexander draws connections between the current conditions of prisoners and former prisoners to the Jim Crow segregation laws. This book is really good in highlighting the disparities in the criminal justice system, and it really highlights the vastness of the prison industrial complex. It is super fascinating, and I think that everybody should check this out. Interconnectedness of the school to prison pipeline, the prison industrial complex, and how that also creates a society of Jim Crow segregation laws modern day. Awesome, love it, check it out. This is an honorable mention. This is At the Dark End of the Street by Danielle L. McGuire. I read this in my Women in Politics class at Grambling State University. I took it a few semesters ago. This book is super important because it illustrates what the civil rights movement is actually about and why it was created, and the erasure of Black women and Black women's issues in civil rights history, because we have this very male supremacist view of it. And if you look at it and you really in-depthly study what this is about, it shows you how the civil rights movement is really about the advocacy for Black women's bodies, which is awesome, and I would have never known that, and I'm so glad to be sharing that with you guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will do a part 2 if you guys want me to. Make sure you guys give this video a big thumbs up and leave a comment below if you've read any of these books before. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys next time. Bye guys.